Good morning and welcome, and thank you for being here today. And if this is your first Vision Day at FBC, thank you so much for making a priority here. And what I'm going to be doing is giving you a report and an update on a few things from last year, and really draw your attention to just two areas of focus for this coming year. If you are unfamiliar with this platform, you may raise your hand at any time, and I'm not very good at inciting discussion. I come across very top-down heavy, but I'm not like that. I welcome questions, queries, but what about this? That does not bother me at all. And so I'm going to try to pause between, but once I get going talking, it's difficult to stop me. So I need this, and I welcome that. And many times I have found I have not clearly communicated because there were about 3 sentences that went through my mind. They just never came out. And so if you're stuck, then stop me, and I would welcome that, please. Let me just highlight a few ways to grow this year. Some of these you'll be familiar with. Some of them are new. We've got a Sunday 4 o'clock Bible class. We are not authorized by the Department of Education to offer credit, but they are credit worthy, and if somebody is interested in pursuing credit, there are some accredited schools that have given credit for prior work done. These are varsity level Bible classes, starting with New Testament survey. We have several in our church training, and I used to teach these on Monday night, and we're trying to open them up to our church. There's even sometimes people in the community who have come to some of the Monday night classes. And so they are welcome to anybody and everybody. It's 8 sessions, New Testament survey, and I've got 2 or 3 in our church who will be taking it. Please come. Maybe you're not going to take the test or write the quizzes, and you just want to come and learn. I would love that. And so those who are taking it as a course will be taking quiz, and that's where you just sip your tea. But come and learn from 4 to 6 on a Sunday afternoon. And the first one is New Testament survey. Another one is our Wednesday growth group. Is not only going to be Wednesday evening, we are now also going to have a Wednesday 10 a.m. for 1 hour at the church. We have more and more people who are not able to, or for very real issues, unable to go out at night. And so we're expecting, and I'm looking forward to Brother Alex helping me with that. That will be here at the church 10 a.m. And we're starting this week. So it might just be Alex and me, but we'd like it if 1 or 2 more come, and we'll start growing together. So 10 a.m. and then also 7 p.m. That will be new. There's also the series that Clive taught last year, Foundations of Faith, Salvation, Baptism. A lot of questions came out of that, and so I've asked Bernard to lead that class again, and that's going to start probably around February. There'll be a sign-up. If you missed it, if you're new to the Lord Jesus Christ, if you're new to FBC, this will kind of be like a one-on-one during this time. Bernard will be leading it for probably 4 Sundays, probably in the overflow room. And that's where you can get some of those real questions answered. What about salvation? What is baptism? What is, I don't know, what are the other 2, Clive? Eternal security and the Word of God, the Bible. And so we're going to be offering that again during the 9 o'clock. So while I'll be teaching a course in here, a class in here, and Clive will be helping with that, Bernard's going to break out for 4 weeks. Yes, that's what you need to do. Thank you, Jen.
Going back to the growth group Wednesday morning and evening, will the same discussion be on the same thing?
We don't know. It depends on who comes. Alex has about 3 or 4 ways he wants to go, and we thought it would depend on who comes. So we can do the same thing. But if it garners a group who says, I'm not ready to read a whole book, I'm at another level, then we will adapt it. But we are ready to do it on the same thing. He's read the chapter. So that's really, I'm looking for his wisdom on that. So our first thing we talked about yesterday was we're going to ask you at Wednesday, what do you need to grow? And we're going to go with that. So. Multi-choice. Instead of us telling you what you need, we're going to say, where can we help you grow? So we'll make that decision this Wednesday. So, thank you. Anybody else? All right. I hope you will. Also, this class starts next week. I'll be teaching 4 Sundays on how to make good decisions. And then, Clive, what's your series called after mine? He's going through basic. He's going through a lot of pictures in the Bible. And he's got 4 weeks, some object lessons throughout the Bible. And if you're like me, I need a picture. I think you'll really enjoy that as well. So the first term is going to be things to help you get going and also help you understand the Bible if you're new to that as well. So I think those would be some. Oh, did none of those go up? There we go. There they are. Anticipation. Okay. Corlene's leading the Tuesday bi-weekly. I think it's 2 weeks a month, 2 Tuesdays a month. Julie's leading the Saturday one. I'm not sure if that's next week or the next week. Look in your bulletin. Okay. All right. Does anybody need those still up, or can I move on? Okay. I just want to throw out just a few things that I've been doing a huge amount of work on, and I am so excited. I can hardly stand it, but I've talked to the deacons about this. It doesn't impact you yet, but I've spent significant time in the last few years getting ready for some of these things. And this year, Lord willing, I've got confirmation this week from several who are going to be assisting us that we are doing it. And we've got a man moving back to South Africa with academic experience setting up a seminary in Zambia. We've got another guy who would fulfill the role of an academic dean. He's already achieved accreditation with the Department of Education. He's in Sedgefield, and we're looking at a multi-site seminary in South Africa where we can offer high-level training to several churches. We've got several full-time faculty lined up who can teach full-time, but then also minister in their appropriate places. And this is something that I've been passionate about. We've been doing it in-house with Pastor Tambiso and now Brother Clive, also Louis and Corleen and some others, Mondre. But we're looking at exposing our people to other great teachers around, and we don't want to do it just at Whitbank. We're looking at broadening it out. For example, the New Testament survey class can be videoed and video conferenced to Cape Town very easily. And we've got some other high-level academically, but they're good pastors that we would like to expose our people to as well. So this is a huge thing for me. It takes an enormous amount of time and energy, and we're ready to go. And Lee Peterson gave me a confirmation this week. He's moving back to South Africa for the express purpose of giving full-time attention to George Coons in Sedgefield and David McCrum in Whitbank. He'll be going back and forth to getting the course work sequence set up, the established national platform that we can then open up to many other churches and get them on board. And it's a huge move in pastoral training in South Africa, and I'm very excited about it. Any questions? Maybe that's like dull as toast to you, but it's like goosebumps for me. Anybody have a question about that? No, it bores you to death. All right, Clive?
That sounds like a big undertaking administratively. How far away practically is this?
By the end of the year, we would like an NGO set up, a name established, 3-year course and sequence established, and already beginning offering the courses by the end of the year. 3 years, 3 to 5 years, we can actually be offering at master's level, bachelor's and master's degree level, and hopefully some with accreditation. All right, so I do other things besides Sunday, just in case you're wondering. Outside of that, we would like to go to a more informal structure, and Lee Peterson has worked on this. I worked with Doug Statler for years on this, but we never could get it going, and now we've got people with professional background who can help us, and we're looking at informal training sessions in southern Africa. We've already got a school in Zambia. We're looking at Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Botswana, and I don't know about Namibia, but we're looking at week-long or weekend-long, but then we can get a roster of 20 to 30 South African pastors and American pastors where we have an eclectic faculty that goes in for a weekend or a week at a time. And Africa needs good theology, and we need to get out there. And now we think that this platform in South Africa will give us the platform to jump across the border. We can't do that level of intensity, but I've received approval for a great program that's actually written for Africa, and I can teach in English, and they can have their textbooks in Swahili or Xhosa or Zulu. It's 41 languages, so even if they understand English, we can provide material in the local language, and I'm super excited about that, and that's been being worked on for the last 2.5 years. And I don't know if that one's going to be this year. I think that one will probably be next year. But I'm desperate to get some help. Since Doug Statler passed, there's a large group of Mozambican pastors who have no training anymore, and that's where we would like to start. Any questions or comments? We do have a contact. It's been a few years, and I spoke to Andrew Zimbiri. He's in northern Mozambique in Malawi. He said, David, if you can come, I can get 150 pastors together. We've also got 2 contacts, but they're old, 2 or 3 years old in Maputo, and that's critical. We have to have a contact. So, yeah. Frank? I'm the mouth, but other people are doing the bulk of the work. I can't do it. I did start another program this year. I'm doing more studies, and Lord willing, I'm entering a leadership program starting in June is my desire on organizational management to assist with the organizational structures. But the academic dean, I have qualification, but I hate it. I hate that stuff. And they would be doing the admin and the academic dean, and I would just be the, let's do this. And our church is one of the most strongest independent Baptist churches we have. We can help, but there's also some financial structures being worked on that it's not an enormous financial burden to any one person or church. No, I can't do it all. All right. Then lastly, this is also probably first one this year, the next one next year, and the third one, probably fruition, would actually be about 3 years out. And that is our MAP program. We've got somebody, and that's the thing, Frank, God is, I think He's giving us people. We've got somebody who would like to take our MAP program and and have 10 MAP residents. And then we get a MAP resident, one a month, who interns with us just for a month, and then he goes to another church for a month, and he's connecting with some other seminaries, conservative Bible-believing seminaries in Southern Africa, and then there's a rotation, and that thing could go to 10, 20, and what we're finding is young men getting their theology training but have no experience, and we've got somebody who would be ready 3 years from now to make that its own NGO, own thing, helping men and women get into ministry and get the practical experience they need. And that would be awesome. We would do it in-house full-time if it was one of our own, like we have done it. But now we might say, hey, here's our intern. He's going to be with us for 5 weeks. Please meet Joe. Please meet Tandeka. Please meet so-and-so. And they're here with us for 5 weeks to intern. And so we're looking at that kind of structure. But we need a person to run that. And we've got somebody who's passionate and burdened for it, but needs some more training, and they're getting that right now. So.
Would these people actually go into ministry?
Yes.
But you said women as well.
Well, Corlene's going into ministry. She's a pastor's wife, and right now I know a single lady raising support to go as a missionary to Kenya. So just because the Bible says the women can't, I think it says that she shouldn't be the lead pastor, it doesn't mean a woman can't go into ministry. And we're actually working on writing some documentation about how to help women get into ministry as well. here at FBC also. So, yeah. Great. All right, so if you're bored with that or you're excited, come talk to me. I think those are some fantastic things. Just a little update from our facility and site development. To 2018, we spent about $700,000 cash, and praise the Lord for the generosity of His people. And that classroom wing is beautiful, but that's not the only thing that has happened. Thank goodness there's no big hole in our roof. Do you remember that? And we budgeted 25. It took over 50 because we saw other trusses were also failing. So they basically rebuilt the truss structure of this, but in-house. But I'm very glad we spent that 50,000 rand. And we needed to do that. The other thing is we've gone ahead and finished the parking in that side. And that was an expense to pave. The mud was just, we weren't going to get grass to grow on that steep slope. And the grass is beautiful, and so that was what we were, so it was kind of an experiment. We're very happy with it, and so there is money in the account. The budget meeting is on the 10th, and you know me, I'm like, yeah, there's like 300,000 or 400,000 in there, and Keith will tell you to the penny. 30 seconds ago, the interest rolled over, so ask him those things, but there's 300,000 or 400,000 in there. But we have been praying, and I would like to tell you the recommendation of the pastors and deacons for next year is that we delay the auditorium expansion and just save. We just spent a lot of money, and I really don't have the confidence from the Lord, I don't know how to say that, to say, and now you need to give another $500,000. I just, you know what? Let's focus on some other things this year, and let's save and give. Please do give. And we will use it appropriately and account for it. But the auditorium expansion will cost about $400,000. Give or take 100. And then the entryway is also about $500,000. That's $900,000. And I think if we could just save for a year or two, we could probably do that cash. And that would just be fantastic. I think it would be good stewardship. And the 8 o'clock service is growing. We frequently have 40, 50, 55 people at 8 o'clock. And it's relieved pressure space-wise on the 10 o'clock. So I would rather see the 8 o'clock grow to 75, 100, and the 10 o'clock be 100. And by then we should be able to do the other cash. If we expand this, we have a 225-seat auditorium, and that is the max for this property. Our zoning allows us to park 200 people. So after 200 people, now you're having a third service or looking for other properties. So it doesn't make sense to build a bigger building if you can't park them. And so we're zoned for 41, 42 spaces. They say that's 200 people. We would like to continue the parking out into this area, and this year replace all the rock with paving and grass. And we can do that and use that second gate we put in for construction vehicles, and it should not cause damage to the work that we're doing. And I think it would really help if we can demarcate, and it would help our parking situation. So we would like to consolidate funds and incrementally improve what the Lord has already given us this year. That's our recommendation. Any question or comment or disagreement or things you would like us to consider going forward on that? Okay. I've been asked a lot of questions about ordination, and it reminded me that Pastor Simbisa's ordination was 5 years ago. Do you realize that? 5 years ago. And when that happened, if you were here then, this group looked very afraid. I don't know if you remember, if you were here, our church was petrified of ordaining Pastor Simbisa and commissioning him 2 years later. But look what God's done. Hasn't he grown as a pastor? Hasn't he grown just in who he is as a person? And God has planted Spring Valley Baptist Church. And I told you, I don't know how it's going to happen, but I think God, this is of God. And I stand today and I get with the same confidence, I say, I believe this is of the Lord. And I don't have all of the answers, okay? But I think it's the right step. And in counsel with Pastor Stabiso and also my dad, even before they left, at the beginning of 2018, they both told me, we believe Clive should be ordained in 2019. And my dad was emphatic, please do not wait till I return. He is going to be here. We're going to Skype them in for the ordination. So my dad will, Lord willing, be on the ordination council via internet. But I've been asked, what is ordination? Why do you do it? How? And so I have written a letter to the church. It's a 2-page letter. You can get it on your way out. It says, Dear FBC family, please take that letter and please read it. And it will give you more information than what I'm going to deal with now. Doesn't he look like a baby there? He just looks like a young whippersnapper with, didn't know anything. Clive, what year were you baptized? 2012. Okay, 7 years ago. And now hasn't he just grown into a fine, mature man? Okay. Yeah, well, anyways. So I want to explain just a few things. The letter goes into some other things, and I ask some things of you in the letter. Please read it. Ordination is the beginning, not the culmination. It does not mean that a person has finished their training. It means it is the beginning, if you take secular terms, of their professional career. It is the beginning of their pastoral ministry. I explained that to a member this week, and he said to me, would you just please tell that to the whole church? He said, I didn't understand that. And here are some of the questions that have been asked me about Clive. And if you've asked one of these, I don't mean it to embarrass you. It really made me aware of how much people didn't understand. I have been asked, so are Clive and Corleen leaving to go find a church where they can make the big bucks? I was asked that. Clive, are you leaving? No. Okay. He said, well, so he's looking for big bucks now. I said, no. And I did not laugh, but that may be funny to some, but that also told me I haven't explained what's happening here. Somebody else asked, is this David's, is this your exit plan? So is Clive being ordained and you're leaving? No, I'm not leaving. I'm here. I've been here longer than all of you. And so you've stopped asking me if I'm leaving. I am not leaving. Unless God divinely writes it in the sky, this is our home. This is where God has called us to minister. I have no plans to leave. And by Clive's own expression, he doesn't know God's will, but I think he has 3 more years of his MDiv studies, his Master's in Divinity. And last I heard from him, he said, I hope to be here 20 years. So go ask him during coffee. Be that blunt with him. But this is not an exit strategy for the McCrum family. You would have co-pastors. We've had that before, and you would have that again. I was also asked, or the comment was made to me, but Clive doesn't preach as well as you. I counted up this week. I have been preaching and teaching professionally, full-time, for 20 years this year. I preach an average or teach at least 5, sometimes as many as 10 times in a week, which gives, on the smallest scale, I have taught and preached in a professional, full-time capacity over 5,000 times. Clive has less than 50, probably. If you did think he taught or preached as good as me, I probably would resign. Say, if I'm going home. We shouldn't compare. I also had somebody say, He's not nearly as good as Pastor Roger. Pastor Roger has preached for 45 years. But Clive is growing, and he is getting better. And that's what you should be understanding. And no, he's not done. And we work every week on his preaching and teaching. And I already know what he's preaching on for February 10th. And he's preaching 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock. And you need to be here. It hurts me, and it sometimes angers me when people have said, well, I'm not coming because Stambisa's preaching, or Mondre's preaching, or Louis' preaching, or Clive's preaching. If you're part of this church, there's always going to be somebody else preaching. It is my life's calling and passion to train other men for ministry, and you're going to have that forever. This will always be a multi-pastored, multi-preached church. And if you can't deal with that, you need to go. Don't complain. Support these men. Support these people going into ministry. And in my letter, I give you some very clear ways to do that. If there is a concern, a genuine concern on something, you have the right and responsibility to bring it to me. One-on-one, come and talk to me and say this and this and this. This was the number one complaint when Pastor Stambisa was training with us. And I heard people tell Stambisa at the door, that wasn't very good. Shame on you. Guess what? Mine aren't always very good either, and some of you have told me sometimes, okay? But you know what? We're all growing, and this church has a responsibility to train. And I have appreciated, you don't realize, Clive works at least 40 hours a week. Then he also takes 5 hours of lecture at least every week and puts another 10 to 20 hours of study every week. That's why he looks so old and exhausted all the time. He labors hard. He is actually ahead of me in some areas. I'm started Hebrew this week. He's already had Hebrew. So you think, oh, it's just somebody here. And you don't realize the amount of work that has gone in. And I appreciate Clive and Corleen. They have dedicated themselves wholly to the ministry. And we saw how God used Pastor Stambisa and continues to. And I fully expect God to do the same. So it is the beginning. Upon ordination, we would refer to him Pastor Clive. We would give him that honor, that respect, and he deserves that. And I would encourage you to come on Saturday, 2 to 5. There will be refreshments. So we'll go about an hour, have a half-hour break, and then another hour. And if you remember Pastor Stambisa, it's open to the church. There will be a panel of about 9 pastors, and he goes through an oral examination. It's a 2 to 3 hour oral examination. They can ask him anything they want about his private life. Any of you want to do that? His theology, and his pastoral philosophy, wisdom, and practice. You can come and go. You're not being rude to do that. So if you can come from 2 to 3, fine. 3 to 4, fine. 4 to 5, fine. Or if you can, stay for the whole time. But please give your support to this family. And give your support to Corleen as she watches. And usually they do ask questions of the wife as well. I always do. Does she know that? Yeah, well, good luck. So I always ask questions of the wife as well. Then lastly, what is ordination? Or not lastly, but it is also a confirmation by the church of God's call to pastoral leadership. And that's why I asked you in October, and I called for a vote on it, church, will you ordain this man? Do you confirm God's call on his life? Will you agree that God is raising this family for ministry? And that's biblical. And I give you a few passages in the letter, and I just give them here as well. We find this in Timothy, we find this in Titus, we find it demonstrated in Acts. Ordination is a confirmation by the church. The panel is just examining him, but even as an audience, if you have a question you want to ask on that day, we will permit it in limitation, but we will permit it. If somebody has a question, In the last ordination, there was one question from the congregation, and it was appropriate. That we are confirming, we're saying, yes, we see God's hand on your life for ministry. And so ordination is not, now you're done, you're finished, you're the best you'll ever be, fine, go make the big bucks. Because that's why we all go into the ministry. No, this is the beginning and the final confirmation of the church. And I will be asking my recommendation to the pastors and deacons, and I've tasked the finance committee as well. We would like to ask Clive, pending his successful completion of the oral examination, no pressure, Clive, that we do call him to be one of the pastors at Faith Baptist Church in our business meeting on February 10th. Clive, please go. And close the doors behind you. Is Corleen in here? No. He's going to edit the video later. And last time I kicked him out, I found he went and sat in the foyer and listened to us on the TV, but that's not quite working yet. So, but are there any questions or comments that you would feel more comfortable asking? Obviously, yes, he will hear it later, but is there any question or comment that you would like to ask? Mondre? Sorry, Bella can't hear. Do you need to open that door? Yeah, sorry. No, Bella, we need you all to hear. We're still replacing some of the audio-visual equipment. His job description, we're finalizing it, but it would not be to oversee the map. There's another individual that we're praying about right now, but the same thing we did with Stembiso, we sat down with Stembiso and asked his counsel on map, and we've adjusted it. We will do the same. We've already done the same thing with Clive, and we're looking at doing map differently, but that is not going to be part of his position. That still falls to me. We will have a detailed job description if you'd like to see it, and that's being finalized in council with the deacons as well. So. All right, somebody go tell him he can come back in then, if you would, please. Doesn't the platform look beautiful? And a few people in the church asked me, can we update some things? And this last year, in 2018, I decided I'm not going to micromanage. I'm one of the worst micromanagers you've ever seen. And in June last year, I said, I'm changing it. I'm not micromanaging at all. So last week, I told them, I said, here's the budget, and I think they've contributed some things as well. We were going to put up new banners. And I said, basically, you can do what you want. Tongue in cheek. You don't have to ask me any more questions, but when I come in on Sunday, I want it done. Let's have Vision Day and have the church half painted. And I don't know how much time they did. I just know I showed up, and it was beautiful. So thank you. A couple families really helped with that. And maybe it's not your style. You know what? It'll get changed in another year or two, and that's fine. And I love that about our church. There's people who take responsibility for a while, and then it goes to somebody else. So, but thank you. It is beautiful. But this is not just a marketing gimmick. We do not do that at FBC. Because you can do church marketing and succeed. But that doesn't mean God is on board. Even last night I was looking over some things for today online. Designed, because with the darker wall, we're looking for a brighter background so the words stand out better on the songs. And that's just a design thing we need to sort out. And I like the dark wall, but we need to find another solution there, and we'll get it. And while I'm looking for this, at church websites, all they are blogs about how to guarantee growth. And it's amazing in church philosophy today and in the common things that are going on, and maybe at pastoral level, because maybe you're not interacting with church life in that way, there is almost zero. You have to read so much to find anything about God. You have to read and research. You don't find anything about the work of God's Spirit. You don't find anything about God awakening men, like Ephesians chapter 2. It says, and you hath he quickened, who were dead in trespasses and sins. Do you know what, Davi? A beautiful banner cannot give you spiritual life, can it? No. So these things have their place and they're beautiful. Even in the Old Testament, they put enormous amounts of money into the facility. We don't. Our facility budget is actually relatively small. If you come to our budget meeting on the 2nd, you'll see it on the 10th of February. But it's appropriate every year that we spend a little bit. And we spend about 1% directly on decor on the entire facility per year, 1%. And the people who do that do a great job, don't they? Things everywhere look fresh and clean, and they're not spending enormous amounts of money. And I really appreciate that about them. So this is something I've been praying about for months. And the correct way to read it, because it's so cool you can't figure it out, is each one, reach one. That's why the one is bigger. You read it twice. There's actually a song, Each One, Reach One. We might learn it later this year, but our theme song is actually about Isaiah 6, Behold our God. I was talking to my pastor in America. If you're new to FBC, you may not realize this, but I have several pastors that pastor me. Dr. Forrester, Pastor Skelly, obviously my dad. And then the church that commissioned me in America, I talk to him regularly. Pastor Brent Boffman. He has been here. Some of you have met him. And I talked to him yesterday for about an hour. And they gave out a newsletter in October, November. And it was interesting to discuss how our emphasis was similar to theirs, but they were developed independently and burdens independently. But I'm going to give you his. And I loved it because it culminates in ours. And he said, David, for us, we're asking people to ask God to use them 4 ways. So I'm small. I'm only asking for one way. He said, we believe every single person should be leading somebody else. You can lead you can mentor somebody. It might be a colleague that at work is burdened or lost, and you say, I'm going to pray for you. When you do that, you are leading them. You're having spiritual influence in their lives. You're going to God on their behalf. You are leading somebody. Every single person who knows God and is walking with God, he said, let's look out and see, who does God have that I can lead? And we're talking about a believer now, maybe, that I could help. And I have that, where I'm saying, I want to actively work with this person this year or these people this year. And that's a little bit more intuitive with me as a pastor in a position of formal leadership. But God will use you to help somebody else grow this year. But the second one we don't think about. He said, I want everybody in the church to be following somebody else. I thought that was really good. And I've done this informally many times over the years, and maybe you would do that. Often at the end of a year, I will grab a few members of our church, more intimately with men, but often I've asked ladies for advice as well. But I'll meet with a man, and a couple times I've met with several men of the church individually. I said, I want to take you for coffee, and I need some advice about this, and this. And what counsel do you have for me? Where do you think I can grow as a pastor? And do you know, 2 years ago, I did that with 2 or 3 men of our church. All of them didn't know it, but they all gave me the exact same counsel. You better believe I woke up. I thought, that's a problem, David. That's a problem. And I believe I have changed that. and try to be more focused in my ministry and less scattered everywhere. So who can I lead? Who can I follow? And my pastor, Pastor Boffman, said, look, I'm going to be talking to Bob Larson. I know Bob Larson. I live next door to him. Bob Larson is probably 5 years older than my pastor. He said there's a real issue and a real thing I'm wrestling with, and I think God's going to use Bob Larson to help me here. Then thirdly, to encourage one. To encourage one. But getting to our last one then, to reach one. Brother Kyle, you know, he's our doorman. Brother, to reach one. And we've got a beautiful little card that we developed. With permission, we got another church's design and rewrote it. Clive and I wrote it. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. There's a prayer that I would like you to pray in the letter. Not as a mystic mantra, but to sincerely seek God this year. Father, please use me this year to bring one person to Christ. I don't know how that's going to happen. It doesn't mean you lead them to Christ or you aggressively witness to them, but God, would you use my life this year to reach one person? We have over 200 people who regularly attend this church. Could you imagine if God brought 200 people to Christ because of this church? That'd be fantastic. The cards, I'm going to ask you to take one packet. They're rubber banded together. There's 5. I'd like you to take one packet every month and invite one person to church every week. Is that because we've got a target of a certain amount of numbers? Not on your life. That would be fine. But I would rather see God bring men and women to Christ and eternity. And our church may never grow bigger, but God will use you. It may be when you get your petrol, you leave a good tip. Don't leave a 2 rand tip for your lunch and then invite them to Faith Baptist Church. Shame on you. Give them a good tip and leave that. Speak to your neighbor. And we think that this card will be an easier way to engage with people. It gives you an excuse to talk to them. So please pick those up on the way out. Any questions or comments about this last one? And I've gone just a little long.